You don't know my name, nor do you know my label yet. I do have a label, one neither earned nor even sought. This label has been traditionally used to cast a negative shadow on the hopes and futures of my fellow members. But I stand here today as a beacon of light, and I hope to highlight the flawed conclusions that are associated with my label. Is this the truth? Is this fair to all concerned? Does this build goodwill and better friendships? Will this be beneficial to all concerned? This four-way test applies to the ethical view of our society. It was first created in 1932 by Herbert J. Taylor, who at that time was taking over a company that was facing bankruptcy. In view of this company's situation, Taylor relied on his ethical standards. And through this 24-word code of ethics for his employees, he developed a guide for choices leading to prosperity. And so we can apply Taylor's same standards in one's everyday relationships with others. Since 1960, the acceptance of single-parent families formed through divorce and non-marital childbearing has increased. From 1960 all the way to 2000, the proportion of children living in a single-parent home has tripled from 9% to 27%. According to a study conducted by Princeton University, nearly 50% of United States' children will spend some amount of time in a home with a single parent before they reach 18. Now granted, I'm sure that we can all agree that having two loving parents in a household is generally ideal. But it is not just to persecute single moms and dads who chose to love and raise their kids. Nor is it reasonable for a child to be scrutinized due to the amount of people in his or her home. Is it possible that it is more beneficial for us to focus on the quality of our parenting instead of simply the quantity of our parents? Here is where the four-way test can be utilized. Now, it is a popular notion to conclude that a single-parent home is empirically worse than a traditional home. Well, first, is this statement even true? Researchers from Global Post have collected data from comparing a survey with single-parent homes and traditional homes. And results show that being raised by a single parent increases adolescent autonomy, which means that a child is more likely to build upon his or her own independence in a home that may not have one or even both of their parents. Global Post also maintains that a child being raised by one parent lacks the opportunity to be harmfully exposed to multi-parent altercations. So my belief is that this statement is in fact not true. But let's continue for the sake of argument. The very next portion of the test, it addresses whether it will be fair to all concerned. There was an article that is entitled Father Absence and the Welfare of Children from Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. And they argue that a child being raised by one single mother is the primary cause of many of this country's most serious social problems, including poverty, high school dropouts, teen pregnancy, and delinquency. They blame the parent. So I would like to ask Washington University, when does the child start taking responsibility for their own actions? And why does it seem fair to blame the parent for the child's decision? You know, the encouragement and the influences of peers and society in general, it is so powerful in today's generation. And as soon as kids acknowledge the trouble that they get into, they look to blame the mother and the father for their mistakes. When in reality, we have to let kids make their own mistakes and cease to brand the sins of the child on the chests of their single parents. Yet again, the test reveals this statement to be false. The very next portion of the test, it addresses whether it will build goodwill and better friendships. Well, let me cut to the chase here. In no way does harnessing a child with any additional burdens such as unnecessary labels and these negative life forecasts will never result in building anything, much less goodwill and better friendships. The only way to truly build goodwill is to focus on what attributes of a family raise that child up, regardless of the number of parental hands that does the lifting. So once again, the test, it highlights the falsity of this statement. The very last portion of the test, it addresses whether it will be beneficial to all concerned. Well, the way that I see it, the problem is not that we have single parents in our country. The problem is that we have bad parents. We praise this multitude of people. We place on a pedestal these members of traditional homes who simply birth and raise their kids. But we isolate and scrutinize the sacrificial mothers and fathers that does everything they can in their ability to make their child be the best that they can be. Why do we scorn a single father that takes time off of work to take his child to the doctor for a checkup? And why do we antagonize a single mother that gets up every 2 hours to feed her newborn baby, gets the child ready for school, drops them off and picks them up, and then has to work a graveyard shift? We ought to shake the hands of parents that took 21 years of their own life to build a strong foundation for their children. So last but certainly not least, ladies and gentlemen, the test registers its final negation of this statement. If you look at some of our greatest leaders, such as George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Bill Clinton, and our current Commander-in-Chief, Barack Obama, they would testify that being raised in a single-parent family is not empirically worse than being in a traditional family. Ashley Rachel from Single Parent Magazine, she comments, she says, "Who says that being raised by a single parent can't be successful?" It is examples like those 5 men who had ambition and they desire to do their best regardless of their circumstance. They show how a child's life is no less great because his family doesn't fit the American ideal. So do you believe you know my label yet? Well, I am a proud product of a single-parent family. But more importantly, I want you to know that my life, it is blessed and it is enriched. Not because my mother is a single parent, but because my single parent is my mother. Thank you.